Ah, jolly good.
Oh, gosh, I just put them in my pocket at the last minute.
Good heavens. Now, tell me about this.
I don't really know very much about it. It's just been passed down through several generations. And I've heard that apparently prisoners of war used to carve them.
So what have we got?
A bone guillotine of some kind.
Right. Now, does it work?
It does. If you pull the cotton, then you can raise a guillotine.
And it drops.
And it will drop.
It's an amazing thing, isn't it? So it's a model of a guillotine out of carved bone, you're quite right. We've got the executioner, I suppose, you can call him that. You've got the victim. And I imagine at some point, do you think there was a head that came off?
I think there was. I can vaguely remember there being a head, but I wouldn't know where it is.
Because there's a basket there for the head to go into. So, you've always known it?
It's always been in the family, and it's been brought out every now and then. We've not been allowed to play with it or anything like that. So.
You haven't used this as a cigar cutter or anything like that?
That's not a bad idea, though.
Well, we've got to go back to quite a long time. We've got to go back to the Napoleonic Wars. French prisoners captured during the campaign, particularly at sea, were brought to Britain and were in prison camps. They spent their time making things, mainly because they were allowed to earn money by the sale of objects they'd created. Now, their only raw materials were what they had in the camp, and that would be straw from their mattresses, it would be bits of old wood, it would be bone, particularly from their diet, from the bones that they were given to cook their meals from. One of the things they liked to make were sort of novelty items. And here is a classic example. We've got Madame la Guillotine, exactly as from the French Revolution, 1789. It all fits in perfectly. And you've got all sorts of elements and themes which are sort of, in a way, out of place with a guillotine, a very sinister object.
I wondered that with the hearts and...
The hearts, exactly. I mean, all around here, you've got these hearts carved into it, these wonderful sort of carved decorations. So rather than make something which is just very basic and crude, an execution device, he sort of packaged it up to make it great fun. And of course, these are the ones that collectors want today, because they're the great rarities. So, a family toy for special occasions, what's it worth? Did you have any sort of sense of its value?
I've never ever even thought about value of it. I thought maybe a museum or something like that, but never value. I've never thought about it.
But would you keep it in the family now? Would the next generation like it?
They'd be interested, or if there were sort of other people who would appreciate it more, I don't know.
Right, well, if I said perhaps £2,000, would they be interested?
I think they'd be very interested if we mentioned £2,000.
Oh, isn't that charming?
Yes.
Absolutely lovely. Look at all these little cherubs all the way around, sides, two on the back, another one there, and one on the top.
Yes.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yes, it is. Yeah, lovely.
Do you have it working at home?
Well, yes, I did, but a child played with it while I was out and dropped it. And
well, let's see what's actually been done. Let's open it up. I mean, it's so tiny. Oh no, I can see that the balance is broken. The little balance that goes like that with the hairspring is broken. That's going to be an expensive repair. But it's such a sweet little thing. It's in gilt metal. The enamel is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you know which country it comes from?
Paris.
Do you think so?
It was bought in Paris.
It was bought in Paris?
Well, it was bought in Paris by father for mother. And it was always, as far as I know, in the family. And father thought it was French.
Well,
we don't know whether it is.
I have to say that it's very strange because on the bottom it has the anchor mark with GB. It's Gustav Becker,
really?
which is German.
Oh, really?
So he bought it in France, but it's certainly
German.
the case is certainly German. Well, even in this condition.
Yes.
What do you think? What do you think of the price?
Oh, well, how much would you say it was worth without the repair?
Well, in this condition, I think it would still fetch close on £1,000.
Would it? Yeah. Well, I thought about that, really.
Since the earliest times that firearms were made, people have always made miniatures of them. But I have to say that in some 25 years of looking at guns, I've never seen a pair of tiny pistols that are as good as this. Now, do you know how old they are and where they're likely to come from?
I have no idea. We inherited them from my wife's parents, and we think that he got them as a gift, but where they're too missing pieces have gone, I'm afraid we don't know.
Right. Well, they are exact miniatures of pocket pistols from about 1840 to 1850, made in Belgium, in Liège. And if I take them out of their case, you'll see that they come with their accessories. That's a little powder flask, and that would be a little box for the tiny, tiny percussion caps that you'd put on them there. Now, they actually function, and you pull the hammer back, and lo and behold, out pops the trigger. But they are exact tiny replicas, even down to the fact that there is a little tiny nipple screwed into the breech there, and I can see that that's been pierced. The cap would go on that, and when the cap was hit, it flashed because it had fulminate of mercury in it, which is a pressure-sensitive explosive. That goes into the breech, sets the gunpowder out, and out would come the tiny ball. And they're engraved all over.
And what is this made of at the end? Is it brass?
I think that it's probably silver and it's been gilded. Any thoughts as to why they might have been made?
No.
I think we have a clue in that little loop on the back there. And I think that they were designed to hang on the end of a gentleman's watch chain. And you could whip that out and show your pals at the club and say, what do you reckon to those there? They'll think, oh, that's wonderful.
Yes.
And that would reinforce your image as a sort of connoisseur and collector. Have you any idea what you think they might be worth?
No idea.
No, they've just been in the drawer.
Well, I think that because there are two of them, I've never seen a pair before. I've seen singles. They're also in wonderful condition. They are in their case, which I've never seen the like of, and they have 2 out of 3 of their lovely accessories. I'm going to say £3,000 at auction.
Good heavens.
Gosh, I could just put them in my pocket at the last minute.
I can see the name of the sitter, David Anderson. David Anderson. Who's David Anderson?
He's my 4 times great-grandfather.
4 times great-grandfather.
Yep.
And there's lovely pearls here with his initials.
Don't know how they did that in that time.
Absolutely stunning. Very, very nice. And he looks like he was quite important.
He was Warren Hastings' right-hand man in India.
Oh, right.
So it was,
About when?
1790s. Oh no, probably slightly early actually, because there's a portrait done in 1797.
Right. And then, so he was obviously a very important man, because this is a very, very beautiful miniature indeed. Really quite an important thing, I
Take
think.
your word for it.
Well, do you know, this inscription goes on, and it says over here, Causeway. Is that who you think the artist is?
Supposedly, yeah. It's in the family book of pictures as that as well, and it's on the frame.
Well, now, the thing is that it's not actually signed by Causeway.
Signed by E.
Exactly. There's a large E in it.
Yeah.
It's a very cursive E, slightly tilted over.
Right.
And I don't think there's any doubt that it is the signature of another artist, an artist called Engelhardt.
All right, yeah.
Engelhardt was very prolific, but he was also very, very good.
Yeah.
And he didn't really drop his standards. I think it's about 1800, that, so that would post-date your great-great-great-grandfather's tour of duty. It's worth about £5,000, £6,000, £7,000.
Right.
And yet, it's such a good one. So rich, so strong, that it could well reach 5 figures.
Crazy.
That is lovely.
Good.
I wonder if there's a family resemblance.
It's not the nose.
Not quite.
About 25 years ago, I had it going, but unfortunately I lost the safety valve, so I haven't had it going since.
Right. What's so clever is that the manufacturers produced this trolley for it, so it could be used on dry land too. That's very clever.
Yeah.
Now, the maker's name, we've got all the details here. This is the trademark here of a company called Gebruder Bing of Nuremberg. They are very highly respected makers of toys. They started off in the latter part of the 19th century, and they went right the way through until the Second World War. And they produced all sorts of very high-quality tin plate toys, ranging from boats through to aeroplanes and cars, and really the whole range of toys. On the whole, I have to say toys for boys. I have to admit it. But this is, I suppose, exciting because of its condition. Fine, it has been fired, but it hasn't been fired that often. And very often, particularly with boats, you find that they've been abused rather than used.
Yes.
And they've lost a lot of paint, and they've sunk, and they've got terribly rusted, and then pulled up from the bottom of the lake, and so on. So this is really quite an extraordinary find. Also down here, we've got the original box,
yes.
which I suppose explains why it is in such very good condition. The decks are beautifully painted, and it has a lot of really quite detailed accessories on the deck here. You've got the ventilators and the hatch covers and the companionways and so on and so on. This is a good example in very fine condition, about 1910, 1912, and we'd be talking about between perhaps £8,000 and £10,000. Has that come as something of a surprise to you?
Absolute shock. If you had said £800, I would have believed it.
Now, I mean, this is top of the list of what collectors are wanting.
No, I can't believe that.
Would I lie to you?
No, you would.
Now, I'm assuming that there is a connection between this ring and the miniature of this lady. Could you tell me what it is?
Well, I understand that the husband of this lady owned the ring. He is believed to have been in diplomatic service in Russia, and the Tsar is supposed to have given him the ring. I don't know the truth of the matter.
So, who was she? Do we know anything more about her?
She's Anne-Françoise de Bargue. She was born in France and brought up amongst royalty. And then in one of the French revolutions, she escaped to England. And she and her husband, Jean-Claude Hubert, were married in St George's in Hanover Square in London, about 1784, I believe.
Ah. Interesting period. Do you think that would be around the same period as that miniature?
I would think so, yes. It seems reasonable.
Well, the ring itself can be seen in two ways. As a pretty ring with a nice plaque in the middle, frame of diamonds. It's a cameo ring, of course.
Yes.
But there's something slightly different about this. We see a lot of cameo jewellery, cameo brooches, cameo rings, but this is quite a historic ring, I think.
Yeah.
And it's carved with a historic blackamoor.
Yes.
And this carving in relief, in a diamond frame, is interesting for one very good reason. Around the neck of the blackamoor is a tiny diamond collar. Now, you can take that in two ways, really. It's simply a pretty carving of a male head in profile, you know, with a collar of diamonds. Or, I wonder if there's another extra thing that one could see in this. Think about the date, 1780s. This is to do with slavery. The, if you like, emancipation of slaves was becoming a very hot social topic.
Yes.
There's a restlessness, a social restlessness, about the sheer horrors of slavery. Now, I think, therefore, and one frankly doesn't see these very often, this is a ring that has been created to be worn by someone who was anti-slavery.
I see.
And I think that's what it's supposed to represent.
Yes.
The cameo, which is a simple grey hardstone with a diamond collar, which I believe is supposed to represent chains.
Yes.
In a diamond border. So, a very pretty cameo in good condition, in a diamond frame, but
yes.
because of the slavery issue, I think we're looking at a ring that's certainly worth a couple of £1,000.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
It's a very
More
rare
than I
ring. I've seen
expected.
nothing like it before on the roadshow, and I doubt I'll ever see one like it again. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
They were my grandmother's. When my grandmother died, my mother had them. When my mother died, I had them.
Well, they're really lovely, and just about the prettiest sort of work that was done around the beginning of the century. And actually looking at them more carefully, I don't actually think that this ever had anything to do with that.
Really?
This doesn't fit, and the enameling's quite different. So I don't think that that actually originally went together at all.
Never.
These were made abroad, and they've got, this one's got an import mark. They were made probably either in France or Switzerland, but they've got all this beautiful enamelling, and it's all engine turned underneath, and then you have this translucent enamelling on top. so that you get this lovely effect of the light, the play of light through the enamel. It's just a sort of delightful little miniature carriage clock. This is probably just to put your rings down on. And of course this percent, really charming and delightful. Very difficult to do this type of enamelling so beautifully.
So how old do you think they are?
Well, this was imported into England in 1913, so it has a London import mark for that year. And the other pieces are of a similar period. Well, if you had to replace just this little clock alone, I think it would cost somewhere around the £1,500 to £2,000 mark.
What, for that little clock?
Yeah, absolutely. And the scent bottle and the stamp, I would say, is probably another £1,500 to £2,000.
Well,
do you know, I've seen many fascinating lighthouse clocks over the years, but this one is very, very intriguing. Let's just take what I call the head of the lighthouse, in other words, that is above the gallery. Yeah. And we have an 8-day French movement in here, and then moving around to the back, we have an aneroid barometer, and then flanking on either side, twin thermometers. Now, for all intents and purposes, that is absolutely standard. The finish has gone, sadly. This would have been gilt brass and silvered brass as well. In fact, you can just see traces of the silver there, but somebody's been a rather bit overzealous with the cleaner and abrased it all away, which is a shame. Now, this lifts out, and in every other model of this I've seen, this particular rod has been a little bit longer, and it has a sort of serrated base, and it is turned by a movement in the base.
Oh, I see.
So very slowly, it just rotates. Let's just pop that there. Now, just to have a look at the detail here, do you see it's actually done in simulated brickwork?
Stonework, yes.
Just like the lighthouse. And you've got the step base of all the ones I've seen before. This bottom bit is black marble, and from there on up is brass, and this bit comes away with 3 big screws underneath to reveal the massive automaton turning movement.
To rotate the
exactly. Now, and this is where, for me, I find this absolutely fascinating, because here it says Dalton's, and here we have the monogram, presumably of the chap who decorated it.
As far as I can establish, it was made at the Burslem factory, and I believe the initials WJB are Wilmot J. Brown, who presumably was the artist that decorated it.
That would make absolute sense.
It seemed to date it about 1882.
Well, that would agree entirely with the mechanism of the clock. The whole movement is very much 1880s.
You mentioned it was French.
It is French.
Yeah.
It is French. And that is why I'm fascinated about this earthenware base.
It seems an incongruous choice of decoration for a stone lighthouse to have flowers on it.
Absolutely right. I really don't know what to make of it. Sadly, I see it's been damaged. Now, have you had it a long time or not?
Well, yes, it's come through the family. My father left it to me, and I presume his father left it to him.
The sort of normal figure for these things is in the region of about £1,800 plus the premium, and they retail at just under 3,000, roughly. To a collector of Dalton, I loathe to use the word unique, but I've never seen anything like this in a book or in my 28 years experience in the clock trade. I think if that was put in the right auction, you could well see towards £4,000 on it.
Good grief.
It is so rare.
You astonish me.
It certainly makes life easier when they write it all out on the back, doesn't it? The entire history. My interest in enamel has really been in the way it's been made and the techniques over the centuries. And I think it's interesting, before we get into the details of who it is, to look at the back of this. So you have a thin sheet of copper, which they've domed, and then enameled it both sides, obviously to keep it so that it doesn't spring or bow. And when you turn it round, of course, I mean, it's just
Beautiful.
Isn't it? Stunning. When you think this has been into a fire 10, 15, 20 times.
Yes.
And to build up this extraordinary luminescence on the skin, and it goes back into the fire, back into the fire. And any time you get it wrong, bang, start again, throw it away. Because it's
incredible skill.
This is quite a big enamel, big miniature for this particular artist, and you can see there are some small flaws in the surface, and that is just small dust marks. It's basically not on her face or body, but up here in the drapery, and they accepted that. I mean, you couldn't scrap the whole thing for some small flaws, but it's getting on the large size to keep them really good quality. But fortunately, as I said, he's given us all the details on the back. Lady Georgiana Charlotte Quinn, third daughter of George John Earl Spencer, KG. Now, is that the famous Georgiana?
No.
Not.
To the best of my knowledge, it's her sister. And I'm pretty well certain it is. The other Georgiana was married to the Duke of Devonshire.
Right. This one married into the Quinn.
She married into the Quinn family.
Born 1794, died 1823, which is a tragedy, isn't it? It's a very short life, 30 years. Of course, it is the family of Princess Diana as well. It's the same, same family. And then we've got a date of London, August 1833, which means this is a portrait that was a memento mori. It was done 10 years after she died, in memory.
Yeah.
So, and it's painted by Henry Pierce Bone, enamel painter to Her Majesty and Their Royal Highnesses, the Duchess of Kent and the Princess Victoria, before Victoria came to the throne, from a miniature by George Hayter. Looking in the records, we see that a number of miniatures were done by Bone for the Spencer family. A whole string of them done at the same period. Wonderful. Well, it's sort of a make my day object, because as I said, I'm fascinated by enamel.
Thank you, I'm very pleased.
I'm sure you've got it well insured, but if it's insured for anything less than 10,000, then you should put it up, in my opinion.
Ah, jolly good. Well, that's very nice to hear, thank you, because I paid 8 for it.
I've not actually seen in it or taken the top off since we got married about 17 years ago, so...
Very okay, chaps. Great. That is just spectacular, isn't it?
Yes, and all the little figurines and the little pussycats and the dogs and everything that goes with it, it's...
So throughout your childhood, you remember it in this glass case?
Yes, it was in my mum and dad's sitting room, and we were never actually allowed to play with it as such, but if my friends came in, we could take the glass case off and look in the back, and it was lovely.
Under supervision, probably.
Definitely.
And what was in the back? Can you remember anything?
What I remember, there were little lights and there's little bits of furniture and pots and pans and things.
Well, all I can hope is that there hasn't been a burglary.
I hope not.
Let's see what's there.
Oh, gosh.
Well, it's
topsy-turvy.
It looks as though they've certainly had something in there. Well, some of this looks bought, some of it looks homemade, beautifully homemade. You said you remember it as a child, but do you think it was there for many generations beforehand?
I think it goes back 2 generations,
yes.
And it was in my grandparents' home prior to my mum and dad.
Yes.
I was always led to believe that it was a replica of an actual existing house.
Yes, well, it's nicely fitted out with, yes, mostly homemade things. The only thing that looks commercially made is, I don't know if we can get in there, is the fireplace in there. But it's what I like about it is that it's this marvellous sort of snapshot of life at a certain point. And it's that point that I'm trying to work out the actual date of it. There are these lovely scenes going on here. I like, on this side, we've got a little cat jumping over the fence. A scene of devastation in the garden, rollers and hose and so on left standing. And then at the front here, we've got lots of little people doing various activities. The one down here I like, reading Lloyd's Weekly News, sitting at her table. And I would have said that we're talking about late 19th century, 1880, 1890. The one little thing that interests me here is that you've got the Union flag stuck in there with a hat pin. One wonders if perhaps that might have been put up for Queen Victoria's Jubilee in 1897, or one of the earlier Jubilees. Seeing it now with fresh eyes. Is it as you remember it?
Oh, definitely.
Has it brought back, and can you see yourself sort of that high playing with it?
Yes.
And what about its value?
Oh, I don't know. The value is really immaterial, but
I won't
love
tell you
it
then.
dearly.
Shall I not tell you?
No, go on.
I think that it's the sort of thing that would appeal to two different types of buyer. On the one hand, you'll have somebody interested in dolls' houses, but the other client would be somebody who's interested in decorative antiques, because it is, with the lights shining on it.
It's beautiful.
And I could easily see this in auction, fetching perhaps £800.
It's lovely.
For me, even though I'm not Cornish, the high point of any journey to the West Country is crossing the Royal Albert Bridge. And here we have it, in replica. I've always had a passion for Brunel. I've always had a passion for this bridge in particular. And to me, this is a magic moment. You know, here we have it. Where did it come from?
I believe it came from a gentleman who was an apprentice in the dockyard back in the 1850s.
Right.
I was always led to believe.
So it's a family piece?
So it's been handed down through the family.
And you've always had it in your house or in your family house?
In my time.
Yes, in your time.
Yes.
Now, this bridge was completed or opened in 1859. It was Brunel's last great design. And when he was dying, and the bridge was just opened in time, he was transported across, lying on a flat railway truck, and he died very soon after. It was a revolutionary bridge for all sorts of reasons. Emotionally, it was the first physical link between Cornwall and England, if you like, that made it possible to travel all the way to Cornwall by train. And so this bridge really represented the boundary with Cornwall. Once you'd crossed the Tamar, you were there. It's a wonderful structure because it's so high. You climb up above the houses and then down through Saltash to get across the river. And this was all because the Admiralty said the bridge had to be far above the mast height at high tide of any ship that went under it. He had to invent a new technology to do it. This tubed construction using iron had never been tried before. And with all his works, everybody said, it'll never work, it'll fall down, it'll collapse, the trains will fall into the river. And of course, he was right. To me, he was a fantastic hero. A great builder of ships, the Great Britain, the Great Eastern, designer of mobile hospitals for the Crimean War, but above all, the engineer of the Great Western Railway. And this was one of the supreme achievements, I think, of a wonderful man. But of course, the question is, what do we do with this? It's got all these numbers, up to 52 weeks of the year. What do you hang in all these slots? Do you know?
Well, I always thought it was pipes.
What sort of pipe?
Clay pipes.
So long churchwardens clay pipes?
Yes.
Would fit there, but do you smoke a different pipe? Not you. Does one smoke a different pipe every week of the year?
Well, I assume that clay pipes broke very quickly when they were smoked, or they burnt through.
They burnt through.
Perhaps they
so
need
maybe
more of them.
But would you hang the whole year's supply out? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Is it a scoring system for a game? 52 cards? You know, there's all sorts of possibilities. Yeah. I think it remains a mystery, but that to me is not the important thing. That's a curiosity which we probably won't solve. But it's just such an exciting thing to see because the bridge is here. You know, nothing could be better in Plymouth than to have, for me, than to have this bridge. It is a remarkable thing, beautifully made and a highly desirable object. What do you do with it?
It hangs on the wall in the house and it will pass through my family, hopefully.
Quite right.
It was my mother's wish that it never left the West Country.
And so it shouldn't.
And if, you know, any of us chose not to keep it, then it was to be given to Cornwall as a gift. I think
it's absolutely right. It should stay here. It's part of the history, because I'm sure it's contemporary with the opening of the bridge.
Yes.
And therefore, I would see, in the right sort of environment, £3,000 asked for it.
Just that? Ooh.
I think so.
Now, tell me about this vase.
Well, it was given to my father, I think, many years ago by a patient. He was a GP in Lincolnshire. And I think he was given this just as a gift one time.
A grateful living client.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah. Well, let's tackle date first of all, because the giveaway is miniaturism.
Right.
In Japan, towards the end of the 19th century, all the crafts of Japan seemed to move towards miniaturism. Everything that could be made smaller was made smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And also in the ceramic technology. And so much so that here you have almost an extreme example of how miniaturistic a painter can get. In fact, you could almost say he's wasting his time because you have to be myopic like me or have an incredibly powerful magnifying glass to see some of the details on this.
Yes.
But I think that's possibly the secret. There is a sort of delight in an object where the detail is so fine that it's almost hidden. It's almost like a sort of secret code between you and the person who made it.
All right. Okay.
So when you know, you're looking at it, even at this distance, what you see is a blue vase with a couple of panels and some pretty sort of flowers in between. Well, let's sort of, I'm lucky, of course, being myopic. I don't need magnifying glasses, so I'm going to take off my glasses and I'm going to look really closely. On one side, we've got this sort of market scene. At the top of the picture is a fruit and veg stall laid out with melons, long white radishes. And then we move down into the bottom left-hand corner and we seem to have a little fish stall. Tiny, tiny fish. Look, I mean, the way that they are depicted, different colours with a different skin, the way they're lying there, their fins floppy. I mean, it's not just any old fish. That is a dead fish on a bench. Now, to be able to paint like that using one hair of a brush and probably going blind in the process is breathtaking.
Yes, amazing.
Now on this side we have a totally different idea. Here we have a still life with flowers. Actually, inside amongst the flowers there is the occasional flounder up here in the corner. This pink fish. We've never seen him before. And then on the fan, because that's what this is a fan.
Yeah.
You have another landscape. If anything, this is even finer than the one we saw on the other side. Right. You've got a receding distance, you've got figures in paddy fields. You've got figures, I think they are probably harvesting rice, and there is a water wheel. And the sluice is running right in front there. I mean, this is just fantastic. And then right in the foreground, another fish, another prawn. Or is it a lobster? I suspect it's a lobster.
Right.
And some sort of a shellfish. I mean, this is miniaturism gone completely mad.
I hadn't realised all that detail was on it.
Well, there you are. I mean, this is a universe on a small piece of pottery.
Good grief.
And it is exceptionally fine. Now, unfortunately, this is not by the finest of all the miniature artists on Satsuma. This is, in fact, from the workshop of a man whose seal appears at the bottom there. It's an impressed mark. It says Kinkozan. Nevertheless, a good maker. He made low-quality goods, he made high-quality goods, and this is probably at the upper scale. It's still not that magic name of Yabumezan, but it's about as close as it comes to Yabumezan. So it didn't cost your father anything, it doesn't cost you anything, so you're not at all interested in what it's worth.
I like it a lot. I suppose it would be nice to know how much it's worth, but if you don't want to tell me, fine.
Well, I will tell you.
Good, thank you.
If you sold that in a Japanese works of art sale, in the current climate, I think it would probably fetch somewhere between £1,200 and £1,800.
All right, goodness. That's good. That's good.